Time to page through the Sunday comics with Luke Burbank.
Only a handful of people knew what Bill Blackbeard was really up to for all those years.
It was a real situation of, one person's trash is another person's treasure.
The treasure that Blackbeard, and by the way, that's his real name, was storing from floor to ceiling in his San Francisco home was maybe the largest, most comprehensive private collection of American newspaper comics ever assembled.
He was single-minded.
Caitlin McGurk is curator of comics and cartoon art at the Billy Ireland Cartoon Library and Museum at The Ohio State University.
He felt a calling to preserve this type of material that no one else really cared about, comic art is kind of an underdog of the art world.
The library is currently displaying just a sample of the trove of cartoons, some 2.5 million pieces in all, that Bill Blackbeard amassed over 30 years of collecting. It's called Man Saves Comics.
This is Little Nemo in Slumberland by Winsor McCay, one of the greatest cartoonists in history, one of the earliest fantasy comics. We have a complete run of Hugo Hercules. It's from 1902, and it's essentially Superman 30 plus years before Superman existed.
You might be wondering why it fell to one eccentric scholar to do so much of this preservation, and why it matters. Well, because there was a time, long ago, before the internet, when things were not saved digitally, meaning a Sunday morning comic with its vibrant colors and social importance could be lost forever if no one saved that particular issue of that specific newspaper.
Why do you think newspaper comics maybe didn't get the respect that they deserve?
People have historically viewed newspaper comics, or comics in general, as something that was just meant for kids or made for the masses. And so it was kind of neglected from the start for that reason.
But they were important for a whole variety of reasons, from early representation of same-sex relationships to black time travelers to entertaining the kids on a Sunday.
Wow, okay, so this is what a kid in 1904 might have made on like a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, you could put this together at home yourself, and this was, affordable, accessible entertainment for children from all different walks of life.
There were, of course, libraries that were converting their collections of old newspapers onto microfilm, but that meant the rich colors of the comics would be lost to history.
Microfilm is entirely black and white photography, and it's film, so it gets covered in scratches and just after a few uses by patrons can be rendered unusable.
Which is where, once again, Bill Blackbeard stepped in.
He essentially, with his wife and some volunteer friends, got a van and started traveling around the United States, amassing these discarded bound volumes from newspapers so that he could clip the comic section out of it and save it in his house. The only room that he didn't have newsprint in was the bathroom because he was worried about how the water would affect the paper.
Decades later, Blackbeard was facing eviction from his California rental home, so he sold his collection to the university. But getting all that material to Ohio, that was no small feat.
It arrived in 1998 in 6 semi-trucks, so it's 75 tons of newspaper clippings.
And 25 years later, they're still taking stock.
We're at about 30 to 40% that has been processed. We have a lot of material that we still have to get through.
Jenny Robb is head curator of comics and cartoon art, overseeing a small team tasked with cataloging and properly storing all those materials.
Are there boxes that haven't been opened yet?
There are boxes that have not been opened in decades.
What has been opened and stored at exactly 64 degrees for archival purposes? Things like the entire 1931 run of Blondie.
So if you want to read Blondie, you can just start at the beginning and read right on through.
And there are the names you might be less familiar with, like Elsie Robinson.
She was incredibly famous in her time. She had more than 20 million readers. And just to put that into perspective, that's double the number of subscribers today to the New York Times.
Allison Gilbert co-wrote the first biography of Robinson, a single mother who created an editorial cartoon and syndicated column empire that ran from the 1920s through the 1950s.
She was able to take on subject matters that perhaps weren't tackled in other parts of the paper as readily. Feminism, marriage, gender equality, pay inequity, racism, capital punishment.
Bill Blackbeard passed away in 2011, but not before his life's passion, the preservation of an ephemeral and often underestimated art form, had been safely transferred to a new generation. Sort of like something out of a superhero story.
I have to imagine he'd be pretty excited to see that this is where it all led.
We hope that he would be proud, and we've discovered such incredible things in here, and we're so grateful for what he did.